Good evening. My name is Erica, and thank you for joining our live interactive telephone town hall. We are hosting tonight's event to give Congresswoman Spanberger the chance to speak directly with you, wherever you are, reach as many of you, and answer as many questions about the impacts of the coronavirus on students, parents, and teachers as possible. As I mentioned, this event is an interactive forum, and we'd like to hear questions from you about this developing situation and how it's impacting you and your family. We'll be taking as many questions from Virginians as we possibly can live on this event. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your phone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. They'll take down your name and where you're calling from. The next time you hear your name, you'll be live on the call and you'll be able to ask your question directly. If you're streaming the event on our website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player. Additionally, if you'd like to receive updates from our office via email, you can sign up for our e-newsletter by pressing 6 on your telephone keypad. We could receive a lot of questions during this event, so if we are not able to address your question, please call our district office at 804-401-4110 during normal business hours. Again, if you have any questions throughout the event, please press *3 on your keypad or type them below the streaming player. If you'd like to receive updates from us via email, just press *6 on your keypad at any time. Again, just press 6 on your keypad. And with that, let's go ahead and welcome Congresswoman Spanberger. Congresswoman?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's telephone town hall. The topic of our discussion will be focused on students, parents, and teachers during this coronavirus pandemic. I am a mother of 3 children, and so I know just how impacted so many of our families in Virginia are as we face these uncertain times. As schools are closed, routines are upended, and parents and caregivers are trying to find a balance between their work responsibilities and keeping their children engaged in schoolwork. My office has already heard from students and parents and principals, teachers, faculty members, and I've spoken with school board members about the challenges that are being caused by COVID-19. It is a very difficult situation, and I know that you all have questions. And my hope is that the guests, the experts who have joined me this evening will be able to assist me in answering some of them. Tonight on the call, we have a wide variety of expertise, and as we are navigating the experience that our children are going through, as we as parents try to adapt, and certainly as we worry about the future, my hope is that they'll be able to answer some of your questions, allay some of your fears, and that I, as your representative, will be able to ensure that we are focused from a policy standpoint on all of your priorities. On tonight's call, I am joined by quite a few guests, and I would like to go through and give you a rundown of who will be with us. We have Holly Coy, who's the Deputy Secretary of Education from the Office of Virginia's Governor, Governor Northam. We have Dr. Tomikia LeGrande, who's the Vice Provost for Strategic Enrollment Management at Virginia Commonwealth University. We have Dr. Paula Pando, who's the President of J. Sargeant Reynolds Community College. Dr. Mervin Daugherty, who's Superintendent for Chesterfield County Public Schools, and Dr. Amy Cashwell, who's the Superintendent at Henrico County Public Schools. Between all of us, we should be able to answer your questions and direct you to additional resources that may be helpful. I do want to note that last month we voted on and passed in the House of Representatives and the Senate on a bipartisan basis the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also known as the CARES Act. This is the third piece of bipartisan legislation that we have passed to deal with the impact of COVID-19 on Virginians and the country. The CARES Act secured approximately $31 billion in emergency funding for students, schools, and institutions, including $13 billion for elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund, which states can use for a wide range of purposes, including the purchase of computers, hotspot devices for online learning, and supplies for cleaning and sanitation. As we confront this unprecedented public health and economic crisis, I will continue to push for strong, coordinated responses from the federal government and a response that considers the needs of our students and our families. I have led on several bipartisan efforts calling on the FCC and the U.S. Department of Education to address in our district, this is a particular issue, the lack of reliable broadband internet access that we see particularly in our rural communities, and which has become an ever-increasing issue in our district. Going forward, the best way for us to fight this virus is for everyone, regardless of age, to keep taking the necessary steps to keep themselves and our community healthy. It is on us to flatten the curve and stop the spread of this virus. I'm grateful for you taking the time to join us this evening, and I'm now going to introduce our guests to share a few opening comments and provide updates on the current situation from their point of view. And we will begin with Deputy Secretary of Education, Holly Coy.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Congresswoman, for that introduction and for your leadership in Washington as you and your colleagues ensure that the federal government is able to provide, in this particular case, educational relief and flexibility for us as we navigate this unprecedented challenge. So again, my name is Holly Coy. I'm the Early Childhood and K-12 Deputy Secretary of Education for Governor Northam, and just really appreciate the opportunity to join you all this evening with some updates. As you are all well aware, to ensure the safety of citizens during this COVID-19 outbreak, Governor Northam closed all public and private K-12 schools for the remainder of the academic year. And while the health and well-being of students and staff remain our top priority, we also recognize that this places an incredible strain on parents, communities, and local school divisions. We know that the impact on students and families during an extended closure is significant, and that the learning time and the support students receive at school are not easily supplemented or replaced. So local divisions are now making decisions about the best way to continue learning in each of their communities. This includes options for virtual learning, additional instruction through summer programming, and integrating instruction into coursework next year. So schools are thoughtfully evaluating their approaches and starting to implement those. They're looking at this through an equity lens as they consider a wide variety of community needs and try and maintain the high quality standards for delivery of both instruction and student support. You'll hear from a few of our Central Virginia School Division superintendents here shortly about the efforts that are underway locally, and they'll be able to share more detail with you about what that looks like. I want to pause here to thank them for their leadership during this time. Superintendents and school leaders across the Commonwealth are having to navigate uncharted waters and are doing so in just phenomenal ways. One of the things that our state and local partners have figured out how to do is to continue providing meals to students in every single division throughout the Commonwealth throughout all of this. And that is something that they're not required to do, but that they are so committed to their students that they have made that a priority even while they figure out how to continue academic instruction. So at the state level, the Virginia Department of Education has begun issuing guidance on a variety of statewide policies, and we've also been seeking relief and flexibility now available to us from the U.S. Department of Education. So all of this includes waivers for end-of-the-year SOL testing, a process for issuing waivers to existing graduation requirements for our high school seniors, as well as teacher licensure renewals. We don't want this public health crisis to unduly burden our students or prevent them from graduating or progressing in their education, nor do we want it to keep qualified teachers from their ability to come back to the classrooms in the fall. I want to, at this point, just make you aware of some resources on the Department of Education website. If you look up the Virginia Department of Education, they've got a COVID-19 page. It has a growing list of frequently asked questions that cover almost everything under the sun. They've got on there as well a parent handbook with some resources. As a fellow parent, we're all struggling to support our kids in this strange new world that we find ourselves in, and they've got some great resources there. They also have a list of all the operational feeding sites, and so that's a place where you can learn more about what meal and feeding programs might be available in your neighborhood. And then finally, I just want to also recognize the immediate and practical implication that school closures have had on families. Many parents are struggling to find childcare while they continue to work or telework or their work situation changes. So I want to make sure that you all are aware that Governor Northam's school closure order does not apply to childcare facilities, which he has called on to remain open for essential personnel, while also asking them to adhere to strict social distancing and health precautions. There's an organization called Childcare Aware Virginia that's tracking those childcare centers that remain open, and I encourage anyone who's looking for childcare also start with that organization. Finally, today, Governor Northam announced that Virginia has received some of the new federal money that the Congresswoman mentioned as part of the CARES Act to provide financial support to child care providers, schools, and to families directly as we seek to keep kids safe while they're out of school. So again, thank you for the opportunity to provide the update, and I look forward to answering your questions later in the program.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Coy. Next, we have Dr. Tomikia LeGrande, again from VCU. She's the Vice Provost for Strategic Enrollment Management. Dr. LeGrande, over to you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Good evening. I would like to thank the Congresswoman for offering such a town hall meeting and for your continued leadership and advocacy for Virginia. I would also like to thank our President, Michael Rao, for his leadership at VCU during this time. I'm pleased to represent him tonight and VCU in this town hall meeting. At VCU, we have continued to focus on our mission during this time and to really serve our students during this challenging situation. We continue to stand as a national premier institution that is focused on teaching, learning, and student research. We've transitioned our university to full remote access by moving almost 6,000 courses online, offering needed support services for students remotely, which include counseling, mental health support, advising, tutoring, and financial assistance, and many more services. We are also committed to providing student strategies to support the successful completion of the semester amid our rapidly changing and stressful situation. We implemented a pass-fail grade option that allows students to earn credit for a completed course but have no impact on their GPA. This provides an alternative option to withdrawing because students who withdraw from courses oftentimes find themselves off track for timely graduation and face even greater challenges with returning the next semester. We continue to serve as a physical home for some of our students with no place else to go by housing, feeding, and caring for them. We continue to provide regular communication to our university and health system employees and the public, updating websites multiple times daily and continuing to partner as one VCU to serve the needs of our community. And later next month, we will celebrate the accomplishments of the graduating class of spring 2020 in a virtual commencement celebration. These are just a few examples of how we've continued to advance VCU's mission and to honor the commitment we've made to our students and the Commonwealth of Virginia. If there's any good thing about our current situation, it's that we now have even more innovative ideas of how we can reach and engage students in new and exciting ways. You'll hear more from President Rao about this in coming weeks. But we're also committed to advocating for additional financial support for our students. We're thankful for individuals who are supporting students that need help through their donations, including a $1 million gift from an anonymous donor last week to be matched. We're also deeply grateful for federal and state support already provided through the CARES Act the Congresswoman mentioned that will help students with current financial challenges and improve their ability to finish the degree they started. Our work in adjusting to COVID-19 shows that VCU is diligently committed to keeping our students and community safe and healthy, reinventing and reimagining our teaching, learning, and student support process in some really positive ways, But yes, COVID-19 has been challenging. But as we move forward together, we continue to ensure that we're serving students and the community who need us to be the very best, emerging as an even better VCU. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. LeGrande. And now Dr. Paula Pando, who is the president of J. Sargeant Reynolds Community College.
Good evening to everyone on this call, and a special thank you to the Congresswoman. We cannot thank you enough for your advocacy for Virginia, for our students, for our people. I thank you sincerely. So to the folks out there tonight, I would like to say to you that your community college is here for you. I think about all of the high school seniors who are having to make some really difficult decisions with their families. This is typically the time of year where students are having to commit to the college or university of their dreams, having to make deposits in such uncertain times. And your community college is here for you. I want families to understand that Virginia, an extraordinary Commonwealth full of wonderful and historic institutions of higher education. In your Virginia Community College system, we have guaranteed transfer agreements with every public college and university across the Commonwealth and beyond. So if some families are making the difficult choice to stay home or to stay close to home or just don't know how this is going to pan out, you do not have to lose any time or spend a great deal of your hard-earned money. You don't have to abandon your dreams of attending your dream school. We are here. Our tuition is a fraction of the cost. Like all public colleges and universities across the country, our instruction has moved online, along with every single support service that we have, whether it's library services, tutoring services, counseling services, countless services, wraparound supports that we have prepared for our students are all available virtually. So your community college is here for you, whether you need to think about taking some classes this summer, starting this fall, or making the decision to complete an associate's degree that is fully transferable to colleges and universities across the Commonwealth and beyond. We're also here for populations who might have lost their job and are looking to retrain, to upskill, or to become credentialed in a career that pays a living wage. We too are here for you. At $166 a credit, Reynolds costs approximately 1/3 of the cost of any college or university in the Commonwealth. I want you to know that our localness, our very localness, is our superpower. So no matter what happens in our area, our mandate to serve you never changes. It never changes. We're here for you. I'll end by saying that I have 3 college-age children. They are all at home. One of them is a student at JSarge, one of them is a student at the University of Vermont, and one of them had to return home from his study abroad experience in London. They are all in front of a computer screen completing their semester online, and I can tell you that the check that I write to all 3 different institutions on their payment plans are very different, and yet their experience right now is very similar. So I put that out there for families who are thinking about how they're going to finance the education of their sons or daughters. You do not have to abandon your dreams of that dream school. You might consider your community college as a good place to begin as we are in such uncertain times. Thank you all so much for your time. I wish you all continued health and wellness.
Thank you, Dr. Pando. Now it's Dr. Daugherty, who's the Superintendent of Chesterfield County Public Schools.
Congresswoman, thank you for this opportunity and for your support of Virginia, but also your support of public education. Chesterfield, we service 63,000 young men and women every day. As we've told everyone, the schools may be closed, but we're in business as usual. We are working through many obstacles. We are averaging over 11,000 meals a day right now, and we appreciate the Department of Education and also USDA for their support and supporting those meals, and hopefully in the near future we'll be providing dinners as well. We are right now we have finished up our remediation and review time. We started that on March 16th with online and packets, pickups, and mailing to families at home. This week we started with our new content that we will run all the way through June 12th. And we are working to make sure by the end of this month that all of our students between grades 2 and 12 have their Chromebooks at home as needed. I think our teachers are doing a fabulous job in reaching out to our young men and women as we continue to find ways to go to the new norm of teaching and making sure that we're connecting with our students on a weekly basis, even by contacting them by phone and through emails and online opportunities. We have done several videos with our families and our students, to our seniors. We sent a video out 2 weeks ago letting them know that we were thinking about them, and our goal was to hopefully have graduation ceremonies in August if that is allowed by the governor, but if not, we will go to virtual graduations to make this experience as memorable as possible. But we as in Chesterfield, but throughout the Commonwealth and probably throughout the country, and talking to friends and colleagues, are dealing with the same issues of making sure our children are having access to online learning, to making sure that this experience that they're going through is one that we can continue some academic progress, that it's not about the grades, but it's about the capacity of learning now that we're building in to get them ready for next year. And we are very hopeful that with the support of the state budget and with the federal government CARES package, that we're going to be able to come back to school in the fall and really address not only the academic issues, but the social and emotional issues that we know our children are going to be facing as they return to school. And so we are confident that we're going to get back to the normal sometime, and we are very proud of what is going on in Chesterfield, and we're excited about this opportunity to share information and answer questions. But knowing that everything that we're doing is online, and I know our principals are constantly in contact with our parents, and we just appreciate the support of not only the parents but the community in helping us reach our young men and women through the donations they've made to help us to get hotspots and to get other technical equipment out to our children. So with that, I'll say thank you again, Congresswoman, and we really appreciate your support.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daugherty. And Dr. Cashwell, Amy Cashwell, Superintendent of Henrico County Public Schools. Thank you so much, Dr. Cashwell.
And thank you, Congresswoman, and I'll also echo my sentiment of thanks for your service as well as your advocacy for public education, and truly appreciate the opportunity to join the others on the call and share what's happening in Henrico County Public Schools. So we have 14 grab-and-go meal sites that run on a daily basis from 11 to noon. We also provide weekend bags on Fridays at those sites, and have been tremendously touched by the outpouring of support from our partners in the Henrico community who have donated food and monetary donations for us to be able to purchase food, shelf-stable food, to provide to our students through a number of other outreach efforts in our community. Our Henrico Education Foundation has been tremendous in organizing and spearheading this effort, and we've even ramped that up with our county government partners. And so, again, pleased to offer those grab-and-go sites as well as anything we can do to get donations out into the community, and certainly have some links on our website to food pantries and other resources that families may need need should they be experiencing food insecurity. We also have some mobile tech hubs out and about in the community. So we have at 4 of our high schools pop-up sites, if you will, and they are have hours daily. In the mornings, it's 8:30 to 10:30 and 2:30 to 4 in the afternoon, where we've been able to issue hotspots to students who have this need, so that we know connectivity is integral, so that our students can get online and access their learning opportunities that we've provided through the school division. And we also offer repair to division laptops and devices at those sites. So should students be experiencing any sort of difficulty with their laptop, they can get them to these drive-up mobile hubs and get some tech assistance as needed. Continuing again in our efforts to make sure that all of our students have that access to devices, while we had a robust one-to-one initiative at our secondary level where students take home their devices on a regular basis, we're currently in the process of equipping our elementary students who need them with Chromebooks. So tomorrow, we're beginning a 3-phase distribution to get Chromebooks into the hands of our families. This will also be a grab-and-go style event at a number of our schools, and principals are beginning to notify their families as their schools come up in this distribution phase. We did some surveying of our families over the past weeks to really determine what this need would be, and I'll tell you it's significant. So we have 50,000 students in Henrico, and of course when you just take out our elementary population, it's hundreds of laptops that we will be distributing to our elementary families, and we're pleased to be able to do this to make sure that our students have what they need to be able to continue learning and have that technology access. We're also hoping to expand our Wi-Fi hotspot opportunities for them as well. We're also pleased, we just launched our newest phase or season, if you will, of on-demand learning. And so we're certainly looking at approaching this continuity of learning in a number of ways, currently through virtual, online, and paper packets that were initially sent home with students, but recognize that this is a long road for us and it's ongoing, and so flexibility and really choice will be important as we move along, but offering opportunities not only now, but we very much hope to do this face-to-face late in the summer to provide some bridge courses, as well as opportunities for students to fill in any gaps with learning. And then, of course, we'll be leveraging opportunities to integrate any missed content when we begin the school next year. So we recognize that every student, every family has their own unique situation and needs as they face this crisis. And so our on-demand learning is meant truly not to be a one-size-fits-all, but to be able to meet students where they are now and throughout this crisis to make sure that we are keeping them engaged in learning and that we are filling in gaps and having them prepared for the next course and or grade level. So we're pleased to keep those resources up to date and have even launched, it's called EdFlix. We're hoping students will be binge learning during their time at home, and we'll continue to release new seasons, if you will, of learning events as we go along and work to keep students engaged through this period of closure. And of course, our teachers are reaching out via Zooms and other electronic methods with our students on a regular basis, seeking not just to continue the learning, but to continue the relationships and connections, and let our students and our families know that we care, we're here for them, we want to help bridge that social emotional gap that we know is so critical in a time where students' schedules and lives have been upturned in so many ways. And so we want to help provide that continuity and caring in any way that we can. And the final update I'll share is that, of course, we're just beginning preliminarily to think about ways that we might celebrate the accomplishments, both academic and extracurricular, of our seniors and so many other students who will be missing the opportunity to do that in large group gatherings in the spring as they're accustomed. And so certainly look forward to continuing ways to honor those accomplishments, particularly for our seniors, but for all of our students as we move through the summer.
So I will end my update there and turn it back over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cashwell. And I want to say thank you in particular to our superintendents who have demonstrated an incredible amount of flexibility, both in Henrico and Chesterfield, but of course in our other 8 counties across the 7th District, flexibility and creativity in the way that you all have led your districts in bringing new forms of learning to our students and trying to give them a bit of normalcy. My kindergartner was on a Zoom call with her class this afternoon, and it was a point of excitement and pride for her with her sisters. So I want to say thank you to you, everyone, for that. And without further ado, let's kick it over to questions.
Okay, wonderful. And I just want to really quickly remind everyone that this is an interactive, education-focused forum focused on the effects of coronavirus on students, parents, and teachers. And we would love to hear your questions. So if you have a question, you can press *3 on your keypad at any time to get into the queue. One of Representative Spanberger's staff will collect your question, and we'll try to get to as many as we can live during the event. You can also press 6 on your telephone keypad at any time if you want to receive updates via email. All right, let's go ahead and go to our first live question. This is Teresa. Teresa, you are live with the Congresswoman. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, I would like to know what underprivileged children that don't have access to laptops because they don't give them out at their school or they don't have internet connections in their house, will they have to repeat the grade?
Teresa, thank you for that question. I'm going to go ahead and start from a federal perspective, some of the assistance that we have, that I'm endeavoring to ensure that our counties and communities have, and then I'll ask if one of our superintendents want to address it, and maybe Deputy Secretary Coy. So in Central Virginia, in the district I represent, we have 10 counties in total, and each county is handling the process slightly differently. So this will be a sampling of what we see. But a major priority for me as a federal legislator is to make sure that we are advocating for the needs of all of our students, and that where possible, the states have the resources and the localities have the resources that they need. And when it comes to technology, we see there's a significant divide, both between our communities where there is broad access to internet or there isn't, but in homes where even if the internet may be available, there aren't the tools, the computer, the devices for them to be able to access it. So one of the things I have been focused on is what's called the E-rate program. The E-rate program was established back in 1997, and it is to provide assistance to schools for them to gain affordable access to the internet with discounts ranging from between 20 and 90% on telecommunications and internet-related technologies, so the ability to get Wi-Fi at a home, the ability to deliver Wi-Fi. And I have led an effort to secure additional funding for the E-rate program. In the future, we have currently done 3 coronavirus-related relief packages from a federal perspective. We're expecting a 4th one upcoming, and I'm advocating for additional funding, $2 billion in fact, to that program to be able to meet the needs and help localities meet the needs of their students who might not have the technology available at home. Additionally, I have led an effort of outreach to the FCC chairman, asking him to make changes to the E-rate program to allow for greater flexibility in that program for students to be able to benefit. And that was a bipartisan effort. I had colleagues on both sides of the aisle join me in that effort. And then beyond that, I also led an effort within Congress to ensure that in our next report, in our next bill, we have language that would go to the Labor and Health and Human Services appropriations through that process, that would require the Department of Education to develop a plan to help local schools better mitigate the effects of of internet connectivity. And, some of this is connectivity, some of this is resources. But those are the things that we're doing from the federal level, but it is, in fact, really our local school districts that are doing the great work. So I'll ask Dr. Daugherty or Dr. Cashwell if one of you would like to take this question and give an example of what your counties are doing, and then if you're aware of what's happening kind of across other districts as well.
Thank you. This is Merv Daugherty from Chesterfield, Teresa, and I could tell you that two things. Your child should not be held back or have a poor grade because of not having internet access or a computer, but I know that we're trying to get the laptops or Chromebooks out to all of our students grades 2 through 12, also providing hotspots for students who need it. We've asked our principals to identify students who they've come in contact with who need help or need assistance or been contacted by the parents. But also that's why packets are going out to simulate also what's going on in the learning environment each week that we're handing out. Every Tuesday, we're either having pickup or drop off or mailing home the parents and dealing with that. And I know that several of our colleagues in the neighboring divisions are also working very hard to make sure that our children are not left out there in the abyss, to say that we are helping them reach the goals of what the academics are and making sure that they follow their mission statements to making sure that children are receiving an appropriate educational opportunity every day. I'll let Amy go ahead and also add to that.
I would simply add that, absolutely, we would not want a child to be negatively impacted in any way based on lack of access to material or lack of ability to fully participate. We know that every family is in a unique situation, and especially for our younger students, they may not have the guidance or parental support to be able to complete a number of the learning activities that are there. So we recognize that every situation is different, and certainly have made plans and communicated with our families that, students will not be negatively impacted based on any learning that is missed that would have taken place after the closure. And so we recognize that we're going to work with our students, certainly to keep them on track and on task during this time of closure to the extent that it's possible, again, bridging the gap with device handouts as we can, such as the hotspots and the Chromebooks, but also recognizing that there will be opportunities, hopefully face-to-face late in the summer, and then once we resume school to help remediate and fill gaps. But know that retention shouldn't be an issue based simply on lack of access due to the closure.
Thank you so much. We're ready for the next question.
All right, let's go ahead to an online question. And again, if you are streaming this online, all you have to do is submit your question underneath the streaming player. Kim is asking, I am a college professor, and we had our monthly faculty senate meeting today. What are the college administrators' feelings about continuing full online education into the fall?
Dr. LeGrande or Dr. Pando, would either of you like to begin with that question?
This is Dr. Pando. I'm happy to just provide my thoughts, and Dr. LeGrande, certainly feel free to chime in. That really will be predicated on CDC guidelines and what we are required to do in the future, keeping the health and safety of our faculty, our staff, and our students as top of mind. That's the most important thing to us, the health and the safety of our community. So while we would like to reintroduce face-to-face courses, that will really be informed by the metrics in place. What is appropriate? When will it be appropriate? And so at this point, for our faculty and our staff, we're trying to strengthen our infrastructure in online, as well as devote some significant resources into training of faculty and staff to strengthen their own skills and capabilities in online instruction. Should we be in a position where in August, September, we're still in an environment that requires us to be teaching in a remote environment. So those decisions will really be guided outside of our control and with the health and the safety of our college community, our students, our faculty and staff as top of mind.
I agree, Dr. Pando. At VCU, we are having lots of conversations because we realize that our students, our faculty, our community have really come to enjoy, depend on, and thrive in our on-campus environment. And so our goal is to open in the fall, as long as it is safe to do so. But that might mean that we have to investigate options of delayed opening later in the semester. And that will be guided, as Dr. Pando mentioned, by CDC guidelines and other feedback that we receive. But the goal is to make sure that we're planful and we're anticipating multiple options and sharing that with the community. And so we're doing that legwork now at VCU with a desire to communicate to our community later, early in the summer.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Let's go to our next question. We have Norman, and he is from Henrico. Norman, you're live with the Congresswoman. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Abigail. So my question is, and it's for you, and it's also for a lot of the superintendents. I've been getting phone calls from a lot of families that I work with, and we're looking for kids with special needs, kids with IEPs, kids going through special education. And I personally am trying to look for some direction. What is the federal government conveying to the states in terms of IEP timeline, service delivery, identification, and at the state level, what are we doing? Or at the local level, how are the needs being interpreted, and what are some of the guidelines that are being disseminated to the schools?
Thank you, Norman. This has been a primary topic of conversation, and we've had quite a few parents and educators call with concern related to what these closures mean, particularly for students who have a particular need or a modified need within the classroom. I'll speak specifically to the IDEA. I am fully supportive of the IDEA. I believe we need to actually fully fund it and fulfill the kind of promise of funding that was initially initiated when Congress passed this legislation years and years ago. And I think it's important that we recognize that in this time of a pandemic, the ability to deliver services to students has to look different and has to change. And that seems to be a general area of agreement, kind of across party, across ideology, across everything on Capitol Hill. And so we're looking, from a federal legislator's perspective, we're looking for places where we can be supportive of localities. And we have been, from a funding perspective, the CARES Act has provided a lot of money and funding to states and localities. As we're continuing the conversation moving forward, where there might be additional needs that may kind of pass through and go specifically to students who might have special needs. But in terms of actually delivering services and adjusting to meet the needs of those students, I'll ask one of the superintendents to take the lead on this, or Deputy Secretary Coy, if you'd like to answer this from a state perspective as well. I welcome you all to answer Norman's question.
This is Holly from. Go ahead. This is Holly from the Secretary of Education's office. I think that the Congresswoman spoke to this issue well. I mean, it in part depends on whether or not divisions are continuing with new learning, or whether or not they're providing those services in the summer or in the fall. So it in part depends on kind of what the local division and how they're proceeding. There have been questions about timelines. You mentioned that in particular. The federal government has provided some guidance around not waiver of the timeline, but some accommodations that can be made when appropriate to how those activities are conducted while schools are closed. And I'll let the local superintendents chime in from their perspectives as well.
This is Amy Cashwell, and I'd certainly say you all covered a good bit of the response to that question, but I would want our families to know that our students with disabilities have absolutely been on the forefront of our considerations when we've been thinking about how to move forward with opportunities for students, whether those are review and enrichment opportunities or how they'll approach new learning, particularly for our high school students and those credit-bearing courses and so forth. So, certainly our case managers, our special education teachers are working to provide supports and reach out to families and make sure that they're meeting needs as they're able. And so as for the timelines, certainly those are still in effect, though our special education teams have been working to engage families and IEP teams virtually for virtual IEP meetings, given the limitations on the ability to meet face-to-face.
Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Let's go to our next caller. We have Daniel. Daniel, you're live with the Congresswoman. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Congresswoman. Thank you for having me on. My question is in relation to the children who depend upon school lunches in order to get their one of their necessary meals during the day. Many rural areas, especially in poor areas, they lack this vital resource in this pandemic. What is the state of Virginia doing to alleviate this?
So thank you for your question, Daniel. I'd like to first note that I serve on the Agriculture Committee, which does have jurisdiction over nutritional programs. So in our Family First Coronavirus Response Act, I've spoken a number of times about the CARES Act, but the Family First Coronavirus Response Act is a bill that we passed in the middle of March. It was the second of our response bills related to coronavirus, and that one, a central pillar of it related to food security and food stability. At that time, we knew that some schools were beginning to shut down, though not universally across the country, and a major priority for me and for my colleagues on the Agriculture Committee was to ensure the continuity of our food security program. So that bill provided more than $1 billion in additional funding to ensure nutritional programs and to provide flexibility for families who need it. It also protects that bill protected the access of students to their school meals, outlining the necessity of those meals to be delivered in the event of potential school closures, and it provided flexibility for families to continue accessing school meals while still following the CDC social distancing guidelines. Here locally in Virginia, it's made some headlines that initially, USDA rules required that a student needed to be present to pick up food, which creates unique challenges for families that are trying hard to abide by social distancing requirements, particularly families where there's a child or an adult who may have an immunocompromised or who may be immunocompromised. So that has been a challenge. The bill, the CARES Act, which was our second bill, provides support to childhood nutrition by granting a nationwide waiver, so states can enact emergency measures for how it is that they provide students with nutritious food and continue this process. It also gives the USDA new authority to approve for state waivers for school meal plans that might otherwise increase the cost to the federal government. And so this allows for states to explore additional options such as meal delivery or transportation of foods in order to get that food into the hands of the student. We, from a federal perspective, have given localities and worked with USDA to ensure greater flexibility, and also overall there's more funding to USDA for food security related programs. So that's what we've done from a federal perspective, and now I will ask if one of the superintendents would like to give an example of what their county is doing to speak more to what's happening here locally.
Yes,
Dr.
Daugherty. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, Merv Daugherty from Chesterfield. And I can tell you that the superintendents, this is a conversation among all the superintendents in the state, and not only in the state but throughout the country. In Chesterfield, we have 57 locations, and we moved many of our locations away from the schools to address issues in apartment complexes, parking lots, park areas, and we've asked our faith leaders and our partnerships and organizations to, if they identified families that were in need, and we've been very pleased at how it keeps growing, and we feel that it's extremely important that we go out to the families to help them with the feeding of their children. And as I said, we are now averaging over 11,000 meals a day, and we think that's going to continue to grow. But I know that not only in Chesterfield, but throughout the region, that everyone is talking about this, but also finding new ways to transport the meals out to the community and not having people come to us, but us come to the families.
Thank you so much. And I would also note, I believe it was Daniel who asked that question, that on our website, which is spanberger.house.gov, we have a tab for coronavirus. And on that tab, we actually have a resource guide that we've built out for food assistance that provides details. We're continually updating it as there's changes across across the 7th district, that provides details of where students and families can access their nutritional supplemental assistance across our 10 counties, and we're keeping that up to date. So that, again, it's on our website. Under coronavirus, there's a tab for food assistance.
Wonderful. Let's go to our next caller. We have Jennifer. Jennifer is from Culpeper. Jennifer, you're live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, yes. I kind of have a two-part question. Some of us need before and after school care through the school systems, and they also do summer care. With the order in Virginia being lifted hopefully by June 10th, is there anything that says we are going to be able to start utilizing that program again? And also a kind of a second part that sort of ties into it. What about a possibility for summer schools? I was a kindergartner, and even before all of this, I know that she was not where she needed to be. So I was hoping that maybe if a summer school program could be implemented, that she could get back in the classroom and really get what she needed and back where she needed to be, so she's not struggling going into first grade with those, kindergarten milestones.
Jennifer, there was a little bit of a muffle right at the beginning when you talked about the first program. You were asking about whether or not that will go back in place after the June 10th date. What was it you were talking about?
Before and after school programs. Some of the programs through the school system with the before and after school also transition to a summer daycare type program. So if it is sponsored through the schools, I think it's like an SACC type of thing.
Excellent. Jennifer, I'm going to ask Deputy Secretary Coy if she would want to lead on this one from the statewide perspective of what the Virginia's Department of Education is looking at.
Sure, happy to. So when the governor closed schools, he just did so through the end of the academic year, and that left the door open for summer school opportunities. And we have asked many of our divisions to consider what summer learning would look like for that very reason that you mentioned about your kindergarten and gaining those skills that she needs to be successful in the classroom in the fall. But that being said, the governor, as with everybody else, is closely monitoring the situation and tracking the different epidemiological models that are emerging and the data that is coming out. And I think we'll have to make decisions about any additional school closures later on in the year. The question about before and after care offered by schools gets captured in all of that school closure requirements. I will say those, it's a local decision, but public schools can be open for childcare for essential personnel. Again, recognizing that while schools are closed, there's about 1.2 million kids who are out of school under the age of 12, and for many parents that requires some other options. And that we want, particularly for the children of essential personnel, to have a safe place to be during the day while their parents are working. And so that looks different in different communities. That may be private providers, but it could be public schools or public schools in partnership with the local YMCA, for example, that sometimes run those after-school programs, running childcare during the day during this pandemic.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Let's go to our next question. We have Bob. Bob is in Unionville. Go ahead and ask your question live, Bob.
Yes, thank you. all for your time. I'm curious what you're going to do to expand education. My 6th grader and 8th grader have been doing online learning through Orange County and are finishing their activities within 2 hours. How can you make this more challenging because the educational system in the state seems to be lacking?
Thank you for your question, Bob. I too have a 6th grader. This is Abigail Spanberger. I too have a 6th grader, and it does ebb and flow the amount of work that she's completing. Though I do feel for our educators who are working on putting that online work together. I would ask one of the superintendents if they have feedback or advice that you would give to Bob about moving forward. I know he's not in your school districts, but from the professional standpoint, what your comments might be to his question.
This is Amy Cashwell.
Go ahead, Amy. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, I have a feeling we'll probably give a similar response, but chime in if I haven't made some points you'd like to add. But I would say that I absolutely understand the challenge. And so I mentioned earlier it was sort of what Henrico was doing, this understanding that we understand one size doesn't fit all. And we also don't want to add undue stress or burden to families. And we recognize that, in most cases, family members aren't educators. And while teachers can provide some face-to-face assistance online, and a number are doing that and all over the state through Zoom and other platforms, for various portions of the day, there's certainly no way to completely replace the face-to-face interaction that would take place over a 7-hour school day. And so that is a challenge. And so what we've encouraged our families to do when this is happening is to have their students reading, writing, staying engaged in activities that may not be linked directly to their course if they've finished up those activities their teacher has assigned to engage in that. Virginia, the VDOE has been advertising this, has got WHRO is broadcasting various lessons related to any number of courses at all grade levels at various times during the day, so tuning into those would be great. So I think there are a number of digital resources out there, and so while we've advertised those kinds of things as links on our website, I know other school divisions are doing the same all across the state. VDOE has great resources listed as well. But recognizing that, even if you were to parse away the active learning pieces of the school day, you probably still wouldn't come up with 7 hours. So I think the pressure to think that students have to be, pen to paper or fingers to keyboard for 7 hours is probably not realistic, but, certainly also wanting to make sure that they're maintaining engagement. So.
If I may, two suggestions. Two suggestions is that are free for your middle school students is one, to look into Khan Academy, KHAN, Khan Academy, outstanding academic resources, especially in the 4 content areas. Also, scholastic.com, a great deal of free material for the children to be creative and explore. And both of these are highly used by school even during the school year and in the summer, but great opportunities that they placed online for this time in history for students to go online to explore their academic abilities.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to our next question. We have Jennifer. Jennifer is from Louisa. Jennifer, you're live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, my question is more back about the broadband access. I live in Louisa, and I'm on the eastern part of the county, only about 20-25 minutes from Short Pump. But it seems like the other end of the county seems to get quite a bit of funding for high-speed broadband. We do have internet. It's not reliable. We are not unable to use hotspots, so that is very challenging for my elementary school kids or children who teachers are great. They're sending in websites for us to use, but it's a challenge for us to get on them. So I would like to know what the plan is to get my end of the county some reliable high-speed internet.
Well, thank you for that question, Jennifer. have been engaged on the issue of broadband connectivity separate from coronavirus for quite some time. Notably in the 2019 appropriation cycle, I was focused on additional funding for the broadband Reconnect program. It's a USDA program that provides grant funding to localities to create partnerships to build out internet connectivity in communities. And in fact, Louisa was one of the communities that recently received a broadband Reconnect grant just a couple months ago. So at this point, the things that I can do from a federal perspective is I continue to advocate for additional funding to the Reconnect program. It's a valuable program that helps localities across our country. I've also been advocating to ensure that the maps are correct because what you mentioned as it relates to disparities even within counties, the way that we measure connectivity across census tracts really doesn't represent the lack of connectivity that we indeed have on the ground. And so when we're evaluating the problem in Virginia or even nationwide, the problem is actually far greater than the maps of where there is broadband access would have one believe. So that's something that I have been focused on. I hosted a broadband summit in Louisa a number of months back. I guess it was back in August, and we focused on the educational impact, again, outside of a pandemic scenario, the healthcare impact and the jobs and economy impact of not having kind of coast-to-coast broadband internet connectivity. So from a federal perspective, I'm advocating for additional funding. I worked in a bipartisan manner to get colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support increased funding in the last appropriations bill, and then I fought to keep it when the Senate tried to nix that funding. So I will continue that pursuit. I'm focused on the E-rate program, which I mentioned at the beginning of the call, and that is to be somewhat responsive right now during the coronavirus. It's a bit of a Band-Aid, but it is a solution to ensure that localities have the expanded ability and the dollars to buy hotspots and technology that will allow for them to deliver internet within their communities where broadband may not be accessible. But from a long-term point of view, I'm actually working on an effort with a colleague across the aisle, so it will be bipartisan, where we are advocating for the principle of the idea that as we are building our country and our economy out of this disaster that is the coronavirus and its impact, that it will take significant investments and attention to the overall infrastructure of our country. And we are stating and pushing for a large infrastructure investment in broadband connectivity, recognizing that in this century, the divide that exists between communities that have internet and don't have internet are similar to the divisions that existed in the last century between those that had electricity and those that didn't. So that is my longer-term focus, and one that I am continuing to be a bit laser-focused on, because I do think that from an economic standpoint, as we are working to rebuild our economy after the terrible turn that it's taken with coronavirus, we have seen, because of school closures, because of economic closures, we have seen the real divides that exist. And part of investing in our community, I believe, is ensuring that we can build businesses and build community and deliver quality health care and education everywhere across our country, and not just in places where there's strong internet. So there's broad scale what it is that I'm doing. I do know also at the state level, the governor's office has a number of strong initiatives to deliver internet across the Commonwealth. That has been a priority for the governor as well. And so on both fronts, we're moving forward. Deputy Secretary Coy, I don't believe that is in your normal portfolio, but would you have any additional comments related to what I just discussed?
I'm not an expert on this, but happy to chime in. The expansion of broadband has been a top priority of Governor Northam's throughout his administration, and is something that he has prioritized state investments in. I'll just add that we're looking at every possible way to take advantage of all the stimulus dollars coming through the state, recognizing that broadband and that internet access is foundational to families and communities accessing all kinds of things from education to groceries to business operations. So absolutely a top priority for the governor's administration as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, we have time for one more question this evening. This is another Jennifer. Jennifer, you are live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. Thank you for offering this opportunity this evening. My question is, I've heard the community colleges and VSU talking about their preparations for the fall if students can't return to school, and I'm wondering what those preparations look like, or if there are even preparations for K through 12 if the school year is disrupted in the fall.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that question. I'm going to ask if one of the superintendents would like to make a comment, and certainly Deputy Secretary Coy, if there's been discussion at the state level related to how you're supporting school districts through those discussions. I would just start by saying, my knowledge and my engagement with the governor's office and with school districts across our community has been that, everyone is still focused on being responsive to where we are right now, and looking towards the science and the healthcare professionals to kind of demonstrate and lead where it is that we should be from a public health perspective into the fall. But I have been impressed by the level of planning that we're seeing in each of the counties that I represent, planning for right now in order to deliver quality education to their students quickly in a responsive nature, and then planning long-term for any future disruptions. But Dr. Cashwell, would you like to start and provide any comments about what the county, what Henrico County is considering, and how you, as a superintendent, are talking through this?
Absolutely. So, certainly our efforts are in the here and now and responding in the immediate sense to making sure we're bridging the gap for the part of the school year that we're now without in a face-to-face fashion anyway. And certainly it has dawned on us as we're making these plans that we may be adapting them in the future as the new school year begins, recognizing that, any number of scenarios could present itself. One thing we know for sure is that things can change quickly, and so we have to be poised and nimble to adapt. And so I'd imagine, we're certainly learning a lot of lessons as we first entered this distance learning endeavor, and we're going to continue learning them between now and June. And so all of those lessons, anything from accessibility to best use of platforms and what works well for our students and their families will come into play as we put in any sort of contingency plan for the fall. But I would certainly call it a contingency plan at this point, of course, waiting for guidance from those who are leading the efforts related to community.
Wonderful, thank you. And Congresswoman, do you have any closing remarks? And then I'll give out some information if anyone would like to contact you.
Absolutely. Well, I want to say thank you to the guests who joined me on the phone today answering questions for our community members. And I want to say thank you to all of the community members who joined this call today. Our goal and intent was to give a platform to find out what's happening here locally in Central Virginia, hear from some of our education experts at all levels. And I want people on the phone to know that I understand the significant impact of school closures on families. I am working full-time for you, and I also have 3 children at home, so I understand the real significant balance and the challenges that come with school closures, the stress that it creates for children, the lack of routine. And so I'm appreciative that you took the time to join this call this evening. And I want to make sure that you all know that our office is available to serve you, to answer questions. We have been focused, as we always are, on constituent services that pertains to any challenges that you may be facing with a federal agent, federal agency, Social Security Administration, Veterans Administration, the list goes on and on. Certainly right now, in the wake of coronavirus and the shutdowns and the Small Business Administration Paycheck Protection Plan, PPP, we have resources available online. If there's any small business owners on the phone, we have resources online that we have developed to help you make sense of what is available, the emergency disaster loans that are available as well through the Small Business Administration. We also have resources online, as I mentioned earlier, related to food assistance and where food assistance resources are available throughout our 10 counties. We have built a resource for individuals who may be facing unemployment, detailing how to get unemployment benefits at this time, which we at the federal level have increased both in payment amount and in length that one is eligible as a way to react to this crisis. And we also have information detailing the individual payments that are going out to many Americans and began this week. So our website is spanberger.house.gov. This telephone town hall will be available if you'd like to go back and listen to it. It will be available for you to go back and review. We have all of those resources available under the tab that is listed as coronavirus. If you'd like to contact our office, you may do so online. You may also do so by calling us. It is 804-401-4110. We are happy to answer your questions about anything and everything as it pertains to the challenges we're facing right now because of COVID-19, coronavirus, but also the typical work of a congressional office helping our constituents navigate the systems of federal agencies. So please, if we can be of assistance in any way, please give us a call. It's 804-401-4110. We will continue to have these telephone town halls. I truly love being at in-person town halls and meeting constituents face-to-face, but in this time of social distancing, we will continue doing these telephone town halls. I'll continue inviting guests and experts to ensure that we're providing additional resources and answers to your questions in the hopes that that may be helpful as we are all going through this challenging time together. So again, I am so grateful for you spending this time with me, and to our panelists, again, thank you for your participation. Our website again is spanberger.house.gov. And our telephone number, again, is 804-401-4110. Thank you. Have a good evening, and please stay safe, everyone.
We have come to the end of our live event this evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this important telephone town hall with Congresswoman Spanberger and our local experts. We appreciate the opportunity to answer your questions. Again, if you'd like to join the Congresswoman's e-newsletter, you can press 6 on your telephone keypad. If we're not able to get to your question this evening, again, you can call the district office at 804-401-4110 during normal business hours, or go to spanberger.house.gov. We'll host more of these events in the future. Thank you again, stay healthy, and have a great evening.